Hi class, now we're going to do our notes on section 2.3, which is called unit rate and constant of proportionality. All right, unit rate, we already talked about that a little bit in section 2.2. Unit rate is when you figure out the rate in which the second quantity is 1 unit. So when you have your comparison of things, whether you're doing miles per minute or dollars per hour, or whatever you're doing, when you take those two things and you divide them by each other, whatever your two rates are, or your two units that make up a rate, and you figure out how much per 1 unit, that's what a unit rate is. So in this particular case, where if I have 6 miles divided by 20 minutes, that gives me 0.3 miles per 1 minute, okay? And I could do that no matter what my two numbers are within my rate. If I divide them, it gives me the unit rate. All right, so in this example here, it says the tram ride at a theme park covers a distance of 3.5 miles in a quarter, 1/4 of an hour. So we want to know how many miles per hour, so how many miles per 1 hour does the tram go. So we can set this up in ratios and figure out our unit rate. So we're figuring out, we know that we can go, we're doing the miles per hour. So we want to put miles first, which is 3.5 miles, okay, divided by per hour. So that's how much we get in a quarter of an hour. It's kind of small in there. Okay, now that looks kind of weird putting fractions within a fraction, but what we're saying is as a ratio, we're doing 3.5 miles for every 1/4 of an hour. Now you can solve this to figure out how much per hour. You can do this a couple different ways. One, you could just divide 3.5 by a quarter, or you can scale it up and say if it's 3.5 miles in a quarter of an hour, we would be figuring out how many miles, so X miles, because we don't know how many miles, in 1 hour, right? Because a unit rate is out of 1. So when we think about it this way, we're thinking a quarter of an hour into an hour. Well, it takes 4 quarters to make an hour. So that's like taking this times 4, right? A quarter times 4 would give you 1 hour. So we can just take the 3.5 times 4 to get our answer for X. So if we take 3.5 times 4, let's see, 2 3.5s would be 7. So X then would be 14 miles per 1 hour. And that would be your unit rate then. Okay, now again, you can get that answer by simply dividing your miles by your hours. If you do 3.5 divided by a quarter, you got to realize that's not 3.5 divided by 4, it's 3.5 divided by 1/4, which is the same thing as doing 3.5 times 4, right? Remember, we can multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so then if we go 14 miles for every 1 hour, the question is how far can we go, the tram travel now in 5 hours? So it's 14 miles in 1 hour, okay, we want to know how much can we go in 5 hours. Okay, so you can set that up as a proportion to solve it. Okay, which you can just see that, oh, I'm just going from 1 hour to 5 hours, so really I am just taking this times 5 to get this answer. So I'm just taking 14 times 5, and that will give me my X. So 14 times 5 then would be 70 miles is how far we could go in 5 hours. All right, so again, that's 14 miles in 1 hour times 5 hours would be 70 miles. All right. All right, so now we're going to use unit rate to help us find the cost per rows for these two situations here.